Most soldiers carried a rifle and called it a day, but a Soviet soldier in World War II carried an entire world on his back. Here is every single item they brought into the deadliest war in human history. First, we have the Mosin-Nagant Mon 1000 891/30 rifle. This was the backbone of the Soviet infantry, a bolt-action rifle that had been in service since the late 1800s. It fired a powerful 7.62mm round with deadly accuracy up to 500 meters. Millions of Soviet soldiers trusted this weapon with their lives across the Eastern Front. Next, the PPSH-41 submachine gun. The Soviets produced over 6 million of these during World War II, making it one of the most mass-produced weapons in history. It fired 900 rounds per minute from a 7.1 round drum magazine. At close range, it was absolutely devastating, and German soldiers feared it deeply. Let's continue with the TT-33 Tokarev pistol. This semi-automatic sidearm was standard issue for officers and crew members. It fired the 7.62 by 25mm cartridge, which could penetrate light body armor. Compact and reliable, it served as a last resort weapon in the tightest situations. Next, we have the F1 fragmentation grenade, known as the Limonka, meaning little lemon, because of its distinctive oval shape. It had a lethal blast radius of roughly 30 meters, demanding serious respect from anyone throwing it. Soviet soldiers carried these clipped to their belts or stuffed into their bread bags. Continuing with the RGD 3-stick grenade. This was an offensive grenade designed to stun and disorient rather than fragment. Soldiers had to arm it by twisting and pulling the handle, which required focus under fire. It remained in service throughout the entire war despite being more complicated to use than the F1. Next up, the RPG 4-3 anti-tank grenade. This was a shaped charge hand grenade specifically designed to destroy enemy armor. It could penetrate up to 75mm of steel on direct impact. Throwing one at a moving tank required enormous courage and split-second precision. Next, we have the PTRD 4-1 anti-tank rifle. This massive single-shot rifle fired a 14.5mm round, capable of piercing light-armored vehicles. It weighed around 17 kilograms and was typically operated by a two-man team. Despite its size, it became a critical tool against early German armor. Continuing with the DP-27 light machine gun. This was the squad-level support weapon fed by a distinctive flat-pan magazine holding 47 rounds. It weighed about 9 kilograms and could fire around 550 rounds per minute. Every Soviet rifle squad relied on the DP-27 to provide suppressing fire during an advance. Next up, the SSH-40 steel helmet. Introduced in 1940, this helmet became the iconic headwear of the Soviet soldier throughout the war. Its wide brim offered solid protection against shrapnel and shell fragments. Stamped from a single piece of steel, it was both cheap and fast to produce in massive quantities. Next, we have the Gymnasterka field tunic. This simple collarless cotton shirt in olive or khaki was worn by nearly every Soviet soldier. It had a chest pocket and was designed for easy mass production. Soldiers wore it tucked into their trousers and layered it depending on the season and conditions. Continuing with the Chanel greatcoat. This heavy wool overcoat was essential for surviving the brutal Russian winters. It could be rolled and worn across the body like a bandolier when not in use. Many soldiers literally slept wrapped inside it during freezing nights in the open field. Next up, the Telegraika padded winter jacket. This quilted cotton jacket became a symbol of the Soviet soldier in winter combat. It was lightweight but provided decent insulation in extreme cold. The Germans were so envious of it that captured examples were sometimes worn by enemy troops themselves. Next, we have the Ushanka winter fur hat. With its iconic ear flaps tied up or down depending on temperature, this hat was a genuine survival tool. It was made from either real or synthetic fur and kept soldiers functional in temperatures well below freezing. The Ushanka became one of the most recognizable symbols of the Soviet military worldwide. Continuing with the Kurza boots. These synthetic leather boots replaced genuine leather ones when supplies ran short. They were stiff, heavy, and not particularly comfortable, but they were durable and waterproof enough for field conditions. Millions of pairs were produced, and soldiers learned to manage them using Portyanki foot wraps. Next up, the Portyanki foot wraps. These rectangular strips of cloth were wrapped around the foot before putting on boots. They reduced blisters, absorbed moisture, and added insulation in cold conditions. Mastering the proper wrapping technique was considered a basic soldiering skill every recruit had to learn on day one. Next, we have the WW2 Meshok backpack. This simple canvas rucksack held the soldiers' personal belongings and rations. It had no frame and no complex suspension system, just a basic drawstring top and 2 shoulder straps. Soldiers packed it with whatever they could carry and kept it as light as possible on the march. Continuing with the Krasnoarmeyets belt. This wide leather or synthetic belt was the foundation of the Soviet load-bearing system. Pouches, a holster, a canteen, and other equipment all attached directly to it. Without the belt, a soldier could not properly organize or access his combat gear in the field. Next up, the Patrontash cartridge pouches. These pouches held extra ammunition for the Mosin-Nagant rifle, typically 2 pouches carrying 30 rounds each. They were worn on the belt in front of the hips for quick access during combat. Running out of ammunition was a constant fear, so soldiers kept these pouches full whenever possible. Next we have the bread bag sumka. This small canvas bag worn on the hip stored food, personal items, and small tools. Despite its name, it carried far more than just bread. It was the Soviet soldiers' version of a utility pouch and was almost always packed completely full. Continuing with the Kotelok mess tin. This aluminum oval-shaped kit was used for both cooking and eating in the field. Soldiers heated food over open fires and ate directly from it on the move. It doubled as a cup, a pot, and sometimes even a small digging tool when nothing else was available. Next up, the Makhorka tobacco. This coarse, rough-cut tobacco was issued in paper packets to Soviet soldiers as a morale booster. Soldiers rolled their own cigarettes using newspaper or any scrap paper they could find. Sharing a smoke became a powerful bonding ritual between men during quiet moments in the trenches. Next, we have the Lend-Lease American Spam Tin. Through the American Lend-Lease program, millions of canned meat tins reached Soviet troops on the Eastern Front. Soldiers nicknamed it Second Front, a dark joke about waiting for the Allies to open combat in Western Europe. It was often the only protein available during severe supply shortages. Continuing with the individual field dressing packet, every Soviet soldier carried at least one of these sterile wound bandaging packets at all times. It was a basic but critical piece of equipment on a battlefield with no immediate medical support nearby. Soldiers were trained to apply it themselves or on a wounded comrade directly under fire. Next up, the sulfanilamide powder packet. This antibacterial powder was poured directly into open wounds to prevent infection before proper medical treatment could arrive. It was a simple but effective stopgap that saved countless lives on the Eastern Front. Soviet medical doctrine emphasized self-aid, and this powder was absolutely central to that approach. Next, we have the MPL-50 entrenching shovel. This short fixed-blade shovel was one of the most critical tools a soldier carried into the field. Digging a foxhole quickly could mean the difference between life and death under incoming artillery. Soviet soldiers were drilled to dig in immediately upon halting, no matter how brief the stop. Continuing with the NR-40 combat knife. This fighting knife was issued to scouts, sappers, and certain infantry units as a close-quarters weapon. The blade was single-edged with a clip point, designed for stabbing in tight spaces. It also served daily as a utility knife for cutting rope, preparing food, and maintaining equipment. Next up, the Mosin-Nagant bayonet. This long cruciform spike bayonet attached directly to the end of the rifle for close combat. Soviet doctrine heavily emphasized the bayonet charge as both a psychological and physical weapon. At close range, when ammunition ran out, the bayonet was the absolute last line of defense. Next, we have the compass. Officers and scouts carried a small compass for navigation across the vast and featureless terrain of the Eastern Front. Without it, units could become dangerously disoriented in dense forests, open steppes, and winter whiteouts. A working compass was a genuinely valued piece of equipment in the field. Continuing with the Soldatskaya Knizhka Soldier ID booklet. This small military identity booklet recorded the soldier's name, unit, rank, and service record. It was required to be carried at all times and was checked at military checkpoints and by field police. Losing it could create serious legal and operational problems for a soldier in the field. Next up, the medallion identity capsule. This small black ebonite capsule contained a paper scroll with the soldier's personal identification information. It was worn around the neck or kept in a pocket, serving as a dog tag equivalent. Tragically, many soldiers considered it bad luck to fill it in, leaving millions of war dead forever unidentified. Next, we have the photograph of family. Personal photographs were among the most treasured items any Soviet soldier carried into battle. They were kept inside jacket pockets, tucked inside booklets, or folded carefully inside letters from home. In the bleakest moments of the war, a photograph reminded a soldier exactly what he was fighting and surviving for. Continuing with the matches or flint lighter. Fire was essential for warming food, lighting tobacco, signaling, and simply surviving cold nights in the open. Soldiers carried waterproof matches or simple friction lighters as standard personal field equipment. In wet or freezing conditions, a reliable fire source was worth more than almost anything else in the pack. And finally, the soap bar. Basic hygiene was critical for preventing disease in the field, which historically killed more soldiers than enemy bullets. A simple bar of soap was issued to Soviet troops as part of their standard personal kit. Keeping clean under combat conditions was incredibly difficult, but every effort made a direct difference to health and fighting readiness. And that is the complete kit of the World War II Soviet soldier. Every single item carried a story, a purpose, and the weight of survival on the deadliest front in history. These men endured conditions most people cannot imagine, and what they carried tells us exactly how they fought, endured, and ultimately won.